All right, Duncan, take it to the house. We go to Austin, Texas for one of our favorites, former quarterback Michael Brewer. Brew, what's up, my man? How are you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Crazy times, crazy times. What are you up to? How are you staying safe? What has this time period been like for you?
Yeah, it's been difficult, as I'm sure it has been for most everybody. But I've just been down here working from home, staying quarantined in Austin. I live downtown over here, so kind of been keeping it low key. Got out of town for the first time this past weekend, so that was good. Excited to get out of the house and back to the quarantine again.
Starting to reopen a little bit down there, though. It sounds like. What are you doing for work these days?
Yeah, so I've been in the commercial construction and development business for the past couple of years. I am actually heading out of town tomorrow for a potential new deal, but can't say too much about it yet. So you'll have to check back in with me in a couple of days, and hopefully I'll have an update for you.
All right. Well, we won't press you on that detail then, because what we really want to talk about and what Hokie fans want to hear about is some of their favorite Michael Brewer moments during this quarantine and downtime. We've had a lot of time to go back and look at some of the classic wins for Virginia Tech and biggest games in program history. Got to start with you, 2014 at the Horseshoe, Ohio State. Just take me there. What was that experience like going in? What was it like coming out? And what was just that entirety of that week like for you?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a great memory. I remember leading up to the game that whole week, feeling really confident about the game plan. Obviously, seeing what Coach Foster had planned for the game with the bear front. I'm sure everybody's heard all about that, but that's something that he's never really showed before, and we were able to see it in practice. And based off of the looks that blocking schemes at Ohio State had done in the past, we thought that it'd be something that would really work, and obviously it did. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I just remember feeling really confident about our game plan. We were getting rid of the ball really quick. That was kind of the game plan going into there. They had such a good pass rush that we kind of wanted to take that out of the game early. So that's why you saw a lot of me going up to the line of scrimmage and making quick checks, just checking into little quick game stuff that I was seeing that was open. And obviously it worked out in our favor, and that was a big win for us.
How much of a challenge was that for you to get to that level of comfort with the offense that quickly? Because I think it's been lost in Tech lore how late you got to campus, how much you had to absorb from Scott Loeffler to be in a position where you could run a quick game in that game.
Yeah, so I think day actually on campus was, actually doing things was like June 2nd or 3rd. I can't remember exactly, but it was at the beginning of June. And so I basically had all of June and July to study the playbook kind of on my own and go out there with the guys and work on some things, because you can't exactly have many meetings in the June and July time period. And then once August rolled around, it was kind of like cramming it all in at once and trying to learn it as fast as I could. So it was difficult. Coach Leffler runs a very complex system. Luckily, there were some guys that had some spillover from the prior year, so they were able to help me out. But it kind of also gets lost that there was a lot of other young guys other than myself, so we were all kind of learning it together. Guys like Isaiah and Cam Phillips, Wyatt Teller, guys like that. They were all freshmen, learning it for the very first time as well. So, it was difficult, but we kept it condensed. We kept it as simple as possible going into that Ohio State game. And we really did a lot of things that I was comfortable with checking.
You mentioned some of those guys, Isaiah, Cam, Bucky, all very young in that game. You relied, though, a lot on Willie Byrne, who's a good friend of yours, former broadcast partner of mine at this point. What allowed him to be successful in that game? And then when you get to fruition, you win in that environment. What was it like traveling back to Hokie Nation to celebrate?
Yeah, I think Willie really thrived in that game because he's such a smart football player. And, you hear the term possession receiver a lot of times, and people have different interpretations of that, but in my mind, a possession receiver is a guy who understands what the defense is doing. So when a team comes out there and he can recognize zone versus man, zone blitz versus a man up blitz, anything like that I would come in and check little quick game based on ththings that I would see, and he would able to find the hole in the defense and know whether it was zone or man and things like that. And like that little out route that he caught, which he still says that he scored on. I won't disagree with him, but like that was an audible, and he saw what I saw, and we ran it, and it worked well. But yeah, so Willie had a great game that day, and then the trip back was awesome. I remember being about half dead on the airplane coming back. Took a pretty good beating that game, so I was pretty worn out, pretty sore. But when we actually got back to Blacksburg, I think it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It was really late. And there was just hundreds of people outside the facility, just keeping the party going, still going strong, and wanted to welcome us when we got back and celebrate that win with us. And that was kind of the moment when I realized kind of how special the whole Hokie family is, the environment up there, and how serious people take it. And it was a great feeling to come to realize just how special of a place it is.
You remember what Coach Beamer was like in the locker room?
Oh, he was very happy. He did one of his famous dances that was after a big win. And he just said, enjoy this one tonight, because you'll remember this one for forever. And, tomorrow we'll get back to work.
All right. Well, now we go to the next year. As you just said, Ohio State took a pretty good beating in a win up at the Horseshoe. It was actually my first game in my role, first game of 2015. Take me through that game. There was such a hype. There was such a lead up to Labor Day night. And unfortunately, ultimately, you wind up getting injured. Yeah,
that was another one that we were obviously really excited for going into the whole preparation. That was a Monday night game. A lot of Thursday night games have been played in Lane Stadium. I don't know how many, if any at all, have been on Monday night. And that was just a, primetime national TV game. You got the defending national champs coming back into town. We had the confidence because we had beaten them the year prior on their field. And again, we had a really great game plan going into the game. And it started off a little bit differently than it did the prior year. We kind of jumped on them early in 2014. 2015, they came out and had a good game plan ready for some things that we were doing defensively and in our blocking schemes. And they handed it to us early, but we adjusted. And about right when that second quarter started, it was one of those deals where we figured out, Coach Leffler and I knew exactly what they were doing. And as a quarterback, sometimes you get out there and you just see things so clearly and the game slows down. And it was a huge bummer that, unfortunately, that I got hurt, because I felt like we would have won that game. We come in and take the lead, and things are starting to slow down, and we know exactly what they're doing defensively, and I'm feeling comfortable, and the offensive line's blocking well. And then obviously the collarbone deal happened, and then it was in the training room for a while, trying to get back out on the field.
Take me through that play, because people forget at the half what a game that was. Like you say, they jump out 14-0, but you guys come firing back. You hit Sam Rogers on that little throwback screen, yep, and things are rolling. What happened on that play in the third quarter? What did that feel like to you, and did you know how serious it was right at the moment?
Yeah. So, I got hit. I saw the rush coming right in my face. We had a guy come free. The defensive tackle came free kind of off my right side. And when I threw, I knew I was going to have to step into it and take a hit. And as a quarterback, that's just kind of part of it. I didn't really think anything of it, and I stepped into it and threw it. And when he hit me, I kind of landed on my shoulder, and he drove me into the ground. And pretty much right when it happened, I knew something was wrong. I didn't know immediately that it was my collarbone. I just knew it was something, that I'd broken my arm or tore up my shoulder, my collarbone, something in that area. I knew immediately was wrong. And then obviously we got to the locker room, and Dr. McFerrin, the surgeon, just put his hand underneath my shoulder pad for about half a second and took it out and looked and said, yeah, not good. That thing's broken in a couple of places. And got the x-ray, and that was it. Broke it in 3 places. Got surgery the next morning, and then it was off to the races to try to get back as quick as I could.
How do you process something like that? Because you'd just gone through all the summer to get prepared, like you say, just much ballyhooed game going in, and then to kind of just see it slip away, not just that game, but, the momentum that you carried into that season.
Yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking. We felt really good about the team that we had going into that 2015 season. We had, of all the teams that I've been on that summer, spring and summer leading up to that fall camp, we worked day and night, guys coming up on the weekends, Friday nights, going into the new indoor facility, getting work in. We had things dialed in pretty tight, and we felt really good about it. And then obviously fall camp rolled around, and practice was going really well. We felt really good, very confident. And, the number one team in the country on our home field, and we were going neck and neck with them for, 2.5 quarters. So we felt good. And then obviously, that happens, and it hurts when your starting quarterback goes down. But Motley came in, did a great job, won some football games. And fortunately, I was able to come back as quickly as I could and get Coach Beamer to a bowl game for his last one.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go. You come back in the Miami game a little bit too late in that game, but then you guys get some momentum going at the end of the season. Take me to Charlottesville. People forget, I think, how much was on the line in that game. You needed to win it to get to bowl eligibility. It comes down to the wire. I remember one play where I think I said Brewer got sawed in half. Do you remember that play? And what was the mindset of the team going into that game? Because again, hindsight makes it seem like it was a foregone conclusion, but it certainly wasn't.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, the sawed in half deal. People ask me, what's the worst hit that you've ever taken? And unfortunately, I've had quite a few of them to pick from. But that one in particular that you're talking about in that 2015 Virginia game may have been the most painful hit of all, ever in the history of me playing football. That guy caught me full speed right in the gut when I was on my toes, and I just remember laying on the field trying to get air, throwing up, the whole deal. They made me get checked for internal bleeding after the game because of that one. I mean, the dude just smoked me. But yeah, that was an awesome game. There was a ton on the line. Obviously, Coach Beamer had announced that he was going to be retiring, and the bowl eligibility was on the line. He had that impressive streak going, the longest in the country, and we all knew how much that meant to him. And obviously, going out with a win against Virginia, how much that would mean to him and the university. And so we were a pretty beat up football team going into that game. Obviously, I had my collarbone deal. I broke my foot. A lot of people don't know I broke my foot the week before against North Carolina. So we had that going in there. I remember Isaiah was dealing with some things. But fortunately, we were able to scrap it out. That was a pretty tough Virginia team defensively, especially. And we were able to just scrap it out and get it done at the end. It was for the second year in a row, it was a nail biter coming down to the very end.
What was it like when Coach Beamer told you guys that he was planning on retiring? You knew that you would be his final team here in a Hall of Fame career in Blacksburg. The second half of that season, what were the emotions flying around? Because certainly it impacted the staff as well as you guys.
Absolutely. Not only did it affect us and the staff, it affected the whole community. But I remember being in that press conference when he went up there and announced that he was going to be retiring, that this would be his last year. It was a very emotional time. I mean, everybody, if you were in that room, you really got the sense of just how emotional and how much he meant to not only Virginia Tech and the football team, but just the entire state, everything that he's done for the game of college football. It was a very heavy moment. But after that, it was, everything that we did, whether it be, preparing for a game, guys trying to get healthy coming out of the training room. It was always with the mindset of, we got to finish this thing the right way for Coach Beamer. He that's what he deserves. And so for me personally, that was when I was coming back rehabbing. That's what I was thinking is we got to come back and get this thing turned around for Coach Beamer. We got to send him out on the right note. And fortunately, he won a dramatic game against Virginia there, the last game of the season. And then obviously the bowl game against Tulsa was a wild one in the shootout. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, take me to Tulsa. I just remember easing into the game, or that was the plan from our perspective, and then bang, there's like 40 points on the board in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Usually we were more of a, run the football, play defense, and, drive the length of the field, kind of a methodical system. That game, for, whatever reason, we came out guns a-blazing. We were running Big 12 style offense in that one. But we were able to get up on them early, and then they kind of came back. And we were able to, obviously make a few first downs and score a few more points there at the end and seal that one out.
What's it like, Michael? I just remember so many of the guys. Isaiah Ford had a huge game. Greg Stroman had a punt return for a touchdown in that game. Wyatt Teller was obviously a big part of it. What's it like for you now to see those guys excelling in the NFL? I would imagine that you expected that with a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of those guys that you mentioned, they were babies when I got there. They were, true freshmen playing on a big stage against Ohio State and Virginia and, so on and so forth. And so to see them mature and get better every year has been a lot of fun to watch. I still keep up with a handful of those guys and obviously been watching them on Sundays, but I'm, couldn't be more happy for them, and I'm really proud of them.
When you went or began your college career, you were a highly touted guy. You go to Texas Tech. You're a Texas guy. Of course, your family has a lineage at Texas. When you look back on it and coming to Blacksburg and becoming the quarterback at Virginia Tech and the years that you spent here, how do you reflect on that and the journey that ultimately it became for you?
Yeah, it was a wild ride. Came out of Lake Travis High School where we had a lot of success. Fortunately, I was, pretty decently recruited. I had, a handful of pretty good options to go to college, and ultimately decided to go to Texas Tech, where really it couldn't have started off much better for me there. I redshirted my first year, and then the next year I was able to play in 9 games as a redshirt freshman and really get a lot of good experience. And then, our head coach, Tommy Tuberville, left, went to Cincinnati, who we ended up playing in 2014. So that was a come full circle moment. But we get a new coach. Things don't really work out. And then I had a back injury that summer right before the season, which really, started the fall of all the dominoes. And so ultimately I decided it was time to transfer. My family and I thought it would be the right decision. And when I did, it kind of turned back into high school again, where you're just listening to recruiting pitches and trying to figure out where you're going to go. And I never would have imagined Virginia Tech would have been where I landed, coming all the way from Texas. But I always tell Coach Beamer, why couldn't you just recruited me in high school? This would have been great. I would have loved to be here for 4 or 5 years. But I enjoyed the heck out of my time in Blacksburg. And, it was the best 2 years of my life that I've spent, for sure.
What would Michael Brewer have done in Justin Fuente's offense? Because it's quite a bit different, obviously, than it was in your time here.
For sure, yeah. I ran a very similar offense pretty much my entire career up until that 2014 season. I ran more of a spread open, kind of like what Coach Fuente does right now and what you see going on in the Big 12. And then obviously Coach Leffler's system was a lot more pro style. And, I think that, the Big 12 and Coach Fuente's system probably suits me better. That's always what I was the best at, was being able to play fast and get rid of the ball out of my hands and get into a rhythm in the passing game. So I would like to say it'd be a pretty fun time getting to play in his system. Unfortunately, I'll never get that opportunity, but I'm excited to watch a lot of these guys come up and get coached by Coach Fuente. He's a heck of a quarterback coach.
You're, of course, big brother to collegiate quarterback Charlie, your younger brother, starring at Baylor. What has that transition been like, where you can't affect things on the field, but obviously you're so emotionally invested?
Oh, it's a lot more difficult, for sure. Sitting in the stands and watching a football game when it's your brother out there is it's a lot different. You get a lot more nervous than when you're actually playing. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, the fall has been awesome. basically the fall has been me either flying to an away game or driving to, a home game or to an away game with my phone on the dash, streaming the Virginia Tech game while I'm on the way to whoever Baylor's playing. So, I mean, this is just a dream come true for me. I'm getting to watch my brother play college football, and, modern technology, I can still keep up with my Hokies and root them on. I think if there was a Guinness Book of World Records, I probably hold the most Virginia Tech games watched in different stadiums across the country. My thing is I go up to the very top deck where I can get service in whatever visiting stadium we're playing in and just stream the game while I'm watching my brother if they're playing at the same time. So that's been a lot of fun. I was up in Stillwater, Oklahoma, actually, watching Baylor play at Oklahoma State, sitting in the very top deck of the very top row, the very top deck at Boone Pickens Stadium, and watching the North Carolina Virginia Tech game this year. So that was a pretty awesome one.
That's pretty amazing that you continue to keep up with Tech every week.
Every week, yeah, for sure. I've got it all dialed up on my phone where I cannot miss a game. So I'm very invested.
You're no longer an active player, but as you said, it wasn't that long ago that you were. You're not that old of a guy right now, so you can still relate to this. What do you suppose, and maybe you've talked to your brother about this, I'm sure you have, what this time of uncertainty is like right now as these guys, March was one thing, but now you're getting closer to that time where you're usually about to ramp it up.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. I think for right now anyway, there's just still a lot of unknown. We've never really had a time, at least that I can think of, where your coaches don't have an answer for you. Hey, when are we going to be back doing this? Well, I'm not really sure. So a lot of these kids, it's up to them to stay on a regiment. Like I know my brother's been throwing and getting reps in, and I've been driving out to help him some on the weekends, going through drills and throwing and watching some tape, studying the new playbook, stuff like that. But for the most part, kids are just kind of on their own right now. So I think if we do get football back here soon, the teams that really have a great culture, a great foundation, and a lot of discipline are going to do really well, right? Because nobody's had the chance to go through spring ball and summer workouts and all that. It's going to be the teams that have got disciplined kids that have been taking care of their business during this time down.
As you prospect this upcoming season for Virginia Tech, and again, we've just established that you're still very much in tune with what's happening. What do you see on the offensive side of the ball as this team comes back pretty loaded?
Yeah, I think last year you really started to see a lot of rhythm start to happen for the offense. Hendon did a great job. I thought our play action game was great. As soon as he was able to come in there, it seemed like the running game kind of opened up a little bit, which in turn opened up the play action game, and things just kind of started to run really smooth on offense. Kind of seemed like he gave them a jolt of energy. Obviously we got a lot of guys that can go get the ball right now. Sounds like that the offensive line should be pretty much all back. So obviously anytime you have that experienced offensive line, that helps a lot. And then, Virginia Tech, obviously Coach Foster's gone now, but they'll always have a good defense. So they'll be straight on that side of the ball, but it'll be fun to watch the offense. I think this year we'll really see them take big steps.
Michael, what would you give to be able to come out of the tunnel to enter Sandman one more time?
Just about anything. It's a pretty special moment, and running out of the tunnel in Lane Stadium to enter Sandman is something that you never forget. It's with you forever, and I'm incredibly happy and grateful that I was able to be a part of that.
All right, now some quarantine questions for you. How have you been keeping yourself occupied? I know you're a big outdoorsman generally. Have you been able to stay sane and get out safely?
Yeah. Just like everybody else, I've been staying home for the most part, social distancing. Been playing a lot of golf.
There we go.
Fortunately, there's several courses around the area that are still open with some modified rules without, you can't touch the flag stick or anything, but just got back from golf trip last night. So that was the first time out of the house. Enjoyed that. But other than that, it's been going outside and getting some exercise, playing golf, and watching a lot of Netflix and hanging out around the house.
Well, that sounds pretty similar to up here in Blacksburg. Michael,
Yeah.
it's always a treat getting to spend some time with you, man. You're one of our absolute favorites. And, anytime you're in Blacksburg, you're welcome on the broadcast.
I appreciate that. I'm excited to come back. I'm hoping we get some more news and an announcement on when things are going to be back, because I'll definitely be booking my trip as soon as I hear that.
Stay safe, my man.
Appreciate it. You too.